New Hampshire, and the president's in North Dakota, giving a really great speech that we've been listening to before about Theodore Roosevelt, how great this country is. I did see a poll today. I mean, there's so many coming out for the 250, and some of them are quite disappointing. But this was a poll of all Americans, not just Democrats. And it turns out that the majority of Americans, particularly Republicans and independents, are very proud of being Americans. And that we still have the same confidence that if we work hard and we do the right things, we can be very, very successful in this country. Now, Democrats, depending on the poll you get, always bring either a majority don't believe that by a large number, or a very substantial minority don't believe that this country will get them anywhere. Now, it's really interesting because I'd love to ask the Republicans and independents in the poll and the Democrats in the poll, are you working? Because if you are living in a situation where you don't work, or you're in a family where you can go back a couple of generations of no work, how the hell are you going to develop a work ethic and the key to success in this country, which is to work hard and obey the law? I mean, you can get as far as you want to go if you do both those things. That's still true. Democrats don't believe that anymore. They don't teach their children that anymore. They don't teach that in schools anymore. The roadblocks they run into are often self-created or created by Democrats in order to keep them subservient as voters. So we're at a turning point, and it would be, and in celebrating this wonderful birthday, which fills me with patriotic emotions and pride, and I still can't minimize for you, and will not, the crisis that we're in the challenge against a challenge to our civilization and to our culture. The communists who are behind all of these, this whole left-wing drift of the Democrat Party. This is a communist executed, Marx scripted movement. Every single thing they do comes from Karl Marx. I would go back and show it to you and cite it for you and give you footnotes. And then what they've done is they've found a very, very nice group of allies in the extremist Muslims, who do not reflect the majority of Muslims, but have not been disciplined by the majority of Muslims, meaning Muslims haven't, in sufficient numbers, come over on our side when horrendous things are done in the name of Allah or Muhammad. Some do, but large numbers become extraordinarily defensive, which helps to continue it. So let's why don't we begin with what's going on in the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom could be a forerunner of us. So they're going to have a new prime minister very, very shortly, a guy named Andy Burnham. Now, if you didn't like Keir Starmer, you're not going to like this guy. If anything, he's to the left of Starmer, if that's possible. And the Labour Party has kicked out Starmer. I don't know if they kicked him out over ideology or incompetence. Generally goes together. Left-wingers can't govern. They can't govern because they have ridiculously unrealistic, in many cases silly, in other cases extraordinarily dangerous ideas. And when they try to put them in fruition, they just destroy, like rent control. They completely destroy a rent market. Like let's pay for everything, and then the city goes broke. So this guy's been in politics for a long time. He tried to be prime minister twice and got beaten, which sounded like should have happened again. He tried in 2010. It was defeated by Ed Miliband. And then he tried again in 2015, and he was defeated by Jeremy Corbyn. So I guess .333 batting average isn't bad, half for a lefty. He's 56 years old. He's from Liverpool. And he was the mayor of Manchester, which is not exactly one of the safer or better cities in England. It's on that east coast, that west coast that is highly dominated by a great deal of obeisance to Muslim causes. He became mayor of Greater Manchester in 2017. He's the clear favorite. He's known as the King of the North, which is a bad thing to be. We get his picture off. I mean, he really isn't all that good looking. Good. I feel more comfortable now with the picture of a lefty who is leaning real close to being a communist off there. And right now, he doesn't have an opponent. It'll be an internal vote of the Labor Party next couple of days, and he's being the leadership. It opens on July 9, closes a week later. If Burnham is the only contender, he'll be the prime minister by July 17th. And so far, there's no one running against him. And so far, he is making all indications that he will not have an election. The next required election in England under the strange rule that they have is in 2029. So he can be there unelected for quite some time. I do think it's kind of strange to have an unelected chief executive in a country that purports to be a democracy, but I'm not sure that England is any longer a democracy. It's got an awful lot of people in jail for criticizing the government or criticizing the Muslim religion. The president says, I hear he's extremely liberal. So that means he probably won't open up the North Sea. You know, I gave Keir Starmer some pretty good advice. I said, open up the North Sea. That's really to solve their energy problems, which are massive. Their financial problems are massive. His comments on the president have been horrible. In 2021, he said, any UK politician who gave Trump the time of day should be ashamed of themselves. Trump has brought instability to the United States and the world. So I don't know what this is all going to mean. You know that they are not. You know that they're not a two-party system like we are. They used to be. They used to be kind of a two-party system. They'd be the Tory party, which are the conservatives, the Labour Party, which is the left-wing party, and the Liberal Party, which was kind of classic European liberalism. And sometimes they'd make the difference, but usually the Liberal Party, the Labour Party, or the Tories would win it. Churchill was obviously a Tory. Margaret Thatcher was a Tory. The only now there are about 5 or 6 parties, including Nigel Farage's Reform Party, which, as in terms of plurality, has the most votes, meaning he gets 28%, and then they have 27 and 25. So it's becoming a very, very fractured country. And that's very, very dangerous in light of the challenge being made by the Muslims to take over the country, which is further along than it is here, even here in the United States. These are battles in cities along the west coast of England over Sharia law or the common law that is, comes from the Magna Carta and before. They, of course, have become very anti-Israel. The level of anti-Semitism in England is as high or higher than in the United States. It's a fear of the Muslim voting bloc is probably greater than in the United States or even now in France. And the joke is, of course, that in 10 years, the King of England will be an Ayatollah. Because last, just a few months ago, I believe King Charles did not give any Easter address, but he gave a Ramadan address. And he is the head of the Anglican Church in England. You say, well, how can a king be the head of a church? But then, go take a look at how Henry VIII, well known for his licentious behavior, well known for his homicidal behavior, started the church. The church is disappearing, by the way. The Anglican Church is disappearing and going in directions of Catholicism or Orthodoxy or non-religion. Remember, the Anglican Church has been under attack from the time it started, not just from the Roman Catholic Church, but of course from the churches that developed as breakaways from it, like the Methodist Church, to some extent the Presbyterian Church, and the various non-denominational churches. It's hard to sustain a church whose chief leading figure is a monarch, a king. Never understood it, but we may not have to understand it for too much longer. So I don't know what this means for our relationship with England. I do know what it means is we should take a pretty damn good look at that, because when you look at New York and you look at the other elections that have taken place throughout the country with these left-wingers who are in love with Palestine, in love with Hamas, hate Jewish people, they've got an awful lot in common with them. And who knows? Now, President Trump visited North Dakota for the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library event, which is part of America's 250th anniversary. Teddy Roosevelt is just one of a kind of president. And I've learned quite a bit about him the 2 summers that I spent as a vacation home near his home on Long Island, and went to his home a number of times with my children and have read a lot about him. And of course, I'm very proud of the fact that he's a Republican. One could say he was a little crazy. Of course, he was also police commissioner in New York, when police commissioner was a little different than it is now. He was the head of really the civilian board that oversaw the police, which merged into our one singular police commissioner, who, in case you didn't know it, is actually a civilian, often taken from the police department, often a police officer. But when he becomes police commissioner, the uniform comes off, the suit goes on, and it's civilian control of the police in New York, like it is in the military in the United States. And the police department is a singular agency of the New York City mayor, who is in charge of the police department the way the president is in charge of the army. Some mayors don't know that, and some mayors, like the current one, hate it and have done nothing to help the police department. In fact, his record budget, which does everything it can to render New York City technically bankrupt, including $10 million more added to it, has added nothing to a police department they took $1 billion away from. So do we have some of the president's remarks, Ted?
We do. This is the president in North Dakota.
And the CEO, who's done a fantastic job, he took me around. I thought it would be maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I've been doing this for 2 hours. Thank goodness I love the subject, or I would not have put up with it. Doug said you could come in. You know, I'm prosecuting a war, which we're winning very easily, by the way. But I said, Doug, let's fly in. We'll do 10, 15 minutes. I know I'm going to love it, and then I'll get out. Oh, absolutely, sir. So then time comes, he got me making speeches. I was over there 2 hours. I know more about that museum than the people that built it. But that's okay, because they did a very good job. I can report that they did a really good job. The CEO of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, who really did give me a tremendous amount of knowledge, I mean, about things that I never would have thought could have been possible about how great this man was. As TR once put it, freedom is not a gift that lasts long in the hands of cowards. How about that? Doesn't last long in the hands of cowards. What a great statement. I want to use that. I shouldn't have said it. I would have used that statement, and I wouldn't have attributed it to TR. And he would have said, "Oh, what a great statement that is! Trump made a brilliant speech."
So there is a thing he, of course, has in common with Teddy Roosevelt, not just the very, very charismatic personality, and maybe a personality that sometimes is controversial. Teddy was, but they're both, of course, New Yorkers, and there have only been a few New Yorkers as president. The last one before Donald Trump was Teddy Roosevelt's second cousin, Franklin Roosevelt, who turned out to be a very, very left-wing Democrat who brought about the New Deal, which is probably the beginning, or maybe Wilson is the beginning of the destruction of the whole notion of the American work ethic. Today, I was on a show on Newsmax 2, and right before I was on, they had a guest on, and he was asked, have there been any examples of socialism succeeding? And this little, obviously poorly educated, ahistorical person who was on, I don't know who it is, said, oh, yes, of course, there was America from the 1930s to the 1950s, suggesting that the New Deal was a form of socialism. Well, we could debate that. I mean, there were, in fact, around Roosevelt, both for domestic and foreign policy purposes, a significant number of traitors to the United States communists. But if we would like to look at that as a success, one would have to note that after all of the New Deal things were put into effect, Roosevelt was sitting there scratching his head, figuring out what to do, because in 1938 and 39, the Depression was worse than it was when he came into office. So what really worked for this little twerp was the Second World War. And what was that? That was the massive amount of money spent in American industry and putting Americans to work and making them more productive than they probably have ever been in their history. That's what saved America. And to suggest that Truman and Eisenhower, who succeeded Roosevelt, were socialists, it is completely an example of the very poor education that young Americans get now. But I don't know, maybe I'll find this for you and play it, because I really am taking some pretty big shots at this guy. I don't have no idea who he is. He may be a very nice guy, but he sure as hell is stupid. On this subject, who knows? He may be a scientific genius, but he doesn't know history. He obviously doesn't read. And when he reads, he obviously reads propaganda. So I guess this is all leading into the other celebrations that are coming up very, 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 very soon. And on the 4th, the anniversary of the Declaration, there'll be parades, tall ships in various places, including New York and Boston. There'll be cultural events. And just find something to read about them, meaning our founding fathers and those who drafted the Constitution for us. Look at one of the great documentaries. Look at that great documentary on John Adams. Reflect on the brilliance of Jefferson and Franklin. These men, if they weren't statesmen, would have been some of the greatest inventors in American history. So I don't want to present this as an isolated problem anymore. So I want, if you just give me a moment. Okay, now, I don't think there are many people that pay attention, unlike the person I was talking about, who would say that we're not going through a crisis with regard to anti-Semitism in this country. Indeed, this may be as bad as we can remember. And as I go back even through the history of America, which has had pretty bad bouts of anti-Semitism, I don't know that it's ever been this bad or this organized or supported by similar movements in Western Europe and now embraced by our alternative political party, the Democrat Party. Embraced in the sense that its most vocal members are people who will say the most hateful things about Jewish people, like Mondami and others, and the people that he's supporting who are even worse than he is. And then without any kind of major criticism from the Democrat Party leadership. I take you back 20, 30 years ago when David Duke was alleged to be a Nazi. He was condemned by then President Bush, by the Republican leadership, by the mayor of New York, and we would have nothing to do with him. And we actually, as a party, supported the Democratic candidate for governor against him. Nobody's doing that to Mondami. No one did that to AOC when she started in, or Ilhan Omar when she came here, married to her brother. And look what that's resulted in, whether she's directly involved or not. It's her legislation that has led to a minimum of $10 billion being stolen from poor people and taken by her Somali allies. Democrat Party says nothing about it. And nobody seems upset that they're not condemning these people. One after another comes along. Then you got the guy in Maine that had the Nazi Totenkopf thing on him, which is SS symbol. He had it there for 15 or 16 years. The liar, completely amoral piece of crap liar, says he didn't know what it was. Every girlfriend of his says he used to go around proudly explaining, as he would abuse them, that it was the Totenkopf. And their recitations of that are recorded back then in diaries and to friends, not now that they might have a motive to go after him because he's running for office or they're jealous. I think if you listen to these women, the one that's public and the two that are more private, I mean, they're just like, thank God we're away from this monster. Well, this guy is, leading by a couple of points to be a senator from Maine, right up here, New Hampshire, Maine, one of the great patriotic states. Yeah, and I mean, there's no doubt that if this were in the Republican Party, President Trump wouldn't have had to be forced to condemn him. He would have done it just like that, just like I would have. Or you pick me a Republican, and like with David Duke, which was 20 years ago, we wouldn't have let him run with the name of our party. And here's another thing that's ridiculous. They've got a Republican that votes with them sometimes, Susan Collins. They aren't exactly, electing Donald Trump or me or somebody who can see that they are the incarnation now of the Communist Party. I mean, she's a middle of the road Republican who, to the consternation of many of us, often votes with them. But she's a hell of a lot better than he is. She's not a Nazi. And they can't say this any longer. The uniform judgment of what happened in the New York City election primary last week or the week before, I don't remember, which it was, I think, last week, was that the thing that gave Mondami all the victories that he got, two throwing out incumbent, rather popular incumbent Democrats, and the other filling fatso shoes, was due to the appeal of anti-Semitism, which they all uniformly have. And the DSA, the party that is built on anti-Semitism, like the Nazi Party was, which Mondami belongs to, 7 out of 8 of their candidates for statewide office defeated incumbent Democrats. And what's the head of the Democratic Party, who is a person who's against this, a man named Jacobs, said that it's anti-Semitism. That was the main driving force. And so have all of the left-wing commentators. So we got a problem, but it's bigger than that. Anti-Semitism is just a sub-part of the problem of their war against Western civilization. It's been going on for 50 years with the communists and for 1,500 years with the extreme Muslims. And we've got to organize to call it out at the earliest possible moment. We're getting better at that. And pointing out the positive benefits of this civilization, because the positive is even stronger than the negative. These two groups, extreme Muslims and socialists, have failed over and over again. And they deliver governments of oppression, inhumanity, indecency, always. Almost no exceptions. And even when they're not all that bad, let's say Saudi Arabia, you can't I'm not sure you can say mass in Saudi Arabia. You couldn't 10 years ago. You're not allowed to put a cross up, that's for sure, or Star of David. And they're the good ones. Not if you look at the 15 of the 19 people who came and killed my people on September 11, yelling out Allah Akbar. So we're going to take a short break. And I hope when we come back, we have Justine with us to talk about this subject, because she knows quite a bit about it. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans. No Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani back with America's Mayor live from Manchester, New Hampshire. And do we have Justine with us?
We do.
Well, we are very, very honored to have Justine Murray with us, who is now a commentator for.
Yes, for Media Research Center.
That's correct. Okay. And there it is, Justine Brooke Murray, Media Research Center. But she is really understands in depth the problem we're facing. She's faced it herself personally. She's done a substantial amount of research and journalistic work. And in this column by my good friend Michael Goodwin in the Post, who writes about how this anti-Semitism, Jewish hatred is getting to a point that it's a national, international problem. He basically says at the end, where will it end up? And his answer really, if you read the whole article, is we either confront it very strongly or we're going to be back to something like Hitler's Germany, maybe a different form of it, but something like that. And the intention is to go beyond Jews to all Western civilization. But even if the intention were just Jews, where are we? Where are all the good people that should be standing up?
Yeah, of course. History always repeats itself. And first of all, it's always good to see you. Thank you so much for having me. And
Happy
thanks
250th birthday, my dear.
Yes, happy 250th. And I wish I could hang out with you guys for the 4th of July.
I wish you could too.
It's going to be such a wonderful celebration, and it's such a reminder of what we have to lose, the great American experiment. And with that, the attacks on Jews, that's only the start. But that is part of the decline of this country, just like the decline of Rome. And God forbid if we do lose this American experiment, thanks to the Islamists, thanks to the communists, what I call the fusion of this movement that is trying to dominate this nation and make it into something else, we might be looking back decades or centuries, or maybe less than a couple of years from now, looking back at the American experiment like we look back at the project of Rome.
I think that what we're not doing correctly, I think that we are doing better pointing out the horrible attacks and calling them out for it, even though we can't get the Democrat Party to really respond a little bit, but not the way it should. But we have the president, we have a lot of significant commentators, we've got a lot of articles about it, not in all the places. What we're not doing, however, is pointing out the positive part of it, what we've contributed. So to me, Judaism is not just a religion, and for that it's very important, because I wouldn't have my religion if it wasn't for that religion. It's an integral part of Western civilization, like Greek philosophy and history, and it's a major source of who we are, and what we believe, even if we don't know it. It's at the source of all of the Western cultures that were developed, what was brought over to America. The 10 Commandments, people may forget, have been given to us by the Jews. That's where it comes from. In the Great Hall of the Justice Department, where they have all the great lawmakers, one of the most prominent is Moses. who brought law when there was no law. The people who oppose us, the communists and the extremist Muslims, hate our civilization. They want to destroy it. So the attack on the Jewish people is always an easy one because it's so damn historical and horrible. But it's always part of a much bigger attack. I mean, Hitler killed 6 million Jews. He also killed 6 million Orthodox Christians.
Yeah.
And his aim was to kill all the rest of them. So people have got to wake up. And Mondami wins because in the last election, 7% of the Democratic electorate in those precincts showed up. Where the hell's everybody else?
It's
Sitting home,
because, yeah.
thinking this isn't much.
Yeah. People either think that there's no use into putting their foot down, that they should just cede New York and cede our blue cities, cede the parts of this country that's being dominated overwhelmingly by the left, that everyone should just move to Florida or move out of the way and basically give up half this nation. And then with that, increasingly the rest of the nation to the people who want to destroy it. And then, of course, the people who are showing up, some of them aren't even registered Democrats. They're just full-blown socialists. But of course, even those who are registered, the Democrat faction, it's mainstream. The mainstream position in the modern Democrat Party is Marxism, and with that Jew hatred, and with that the support and bending the knee to the Islamists who we've imported from the third world, these so-called 30-year-old college students at Columbia University who their organizations claim that they're explicitly there to destroy Western civilization, but we're cheerleading them. You have 60 Minutes rewarding them with TV spots, treating them like victims. And now you have, at least in Colorado, there's a candidate. She just won her Democrat primary. Yep.
I almost can't follow it anymore. It's coming out. It's like one of these horror movies where the devil comes out of the ground here and here and here and here, and no matter what you do, they just keep coming out. And you have all these people, you have all these people who have these completely unrealistic views. Communism, it took 150, 160 years, going back to Marx, to infiltrate us. Probably started with Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt and his administration and Yalta and giving away Eastern Europe and all of that. How did this Muslim thing happen? Where we like Hamas better than Israel, not focusing on the fact that everybody born in Palestine is trained to kill Jews and Americans. I mean, I don't have anything inherently against the Palestinian people, except when they're little babies, they're trained to kill me. That's kind of not a prejudice. That's just a realistic idea about life when you believe in self-preservation or preservation of your family.
It's been increasingly hammered into the heads, particularly of millennials and my generation, the Zoomers, that America and the West as a whole, they're evil, that our ancestors and the builders before us are evil, and we're automatically born oppressors because of the so-called evils that our ancestors committed, which was really actually to create a modern civilization, or the opportunity for a Western civilization, a civilization, one of the few civilizations that actually continues to self-correct. But a lot of people will mistake it for maybe this overcorrection or the suicidal empathy. But it's been drummed into our young minds for so long that no, we are the bad guys, and that evil is relative. Good and evil are relative, but also at the same time, the evil guys are always the ones who are misunderstood, and it must always have been our fault. We've always done something to provoke them. Yeah.
It was a switch I watched because when I grew up, which is, back when there were horses and stuff like that. When I grew up, the Jewish people, although there was anti-Semitism, there also was a feeling that the Jewish people, because this was in the wake of the Holocaust, were the victims. And even when the state of Israel started, there was great empathy for it.
Right.
even among people who might even have been brought up with some degree of anti-Semitism. They kind of saw this as logical. Like, these people, yeah, this went too far. These people need this homeland. And when it started switching around the time of Arafat, and I started watching it, I couldn't understand it. And it started to demonstrate to me, maybe I was in my mid-30s then, started to demonstrate to me the power and the perverseness of propaganda and how people can use it. Because, I mean, they just completely switched roles. The bad guys became the good guys, and the good guys became the bad guys, based on this really Marxist theory of oppressor and oppressed. Originally, it was the rich and the poor, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. But it didn't work because we didn't have enough poverty in America to make it work. And they decided to use race, but even broader than that, oppressor and oppressed. And Israel all of a sudden gets put in the oppressor category. And the real oppressors were the Muslim extremists.
It's because society, they will always sympathize with dead Jews. So they'll always sympathize with the Holocaust victims, but they'll never sympathize with the Jewish people who are fed up and actually fighting back to survive. And that's basically the story of modern day Israel. Jewish people who said, hey, you know what? We're not going to get walked all over anymore. Just like every other identity group, every other ancestral homeland, we have the right to take our land. And of course, the people who oppose that, the leftists who oppose that, they're the same ones who keep preaching on behalf of so-called Native Americans, on the indigenous. Yep. And they support that because part of it, as you mentioned, it's this Marxism. Before it was they wanted to pit the rich and the poor against each other. And they see that Jewish people, our culture, it's inherently successful, that we usually have a 2-parent household, that we have a strong work ethic. And just like what they did in 2020 with white people, they're doing the same thing. Of course, it was always going to devolve into the hatred of Jews. They have done that throughout history. And the hatred of Jews, on the left at least, the mainstream hatred, it has been budding for decades. It was just kind of this undercurrent masked under their hatred towards whitey, because that was already approved. That was socially acceptable. And of course, little by little, now the flavor of the day is to target Jews. And we're seeing it on factions of the right, but that's, at least for now, mostly online. But of course, now those factions of the right and the mainstream left, they're uniting and they're becoming this political horseshoe that's really always been there. But if we take the names away, if we take away Tucker's name and Candace's name and Anna Kasparian, the Young Turks, Mamdani, and we just like mix up their quotes,
Yeah,
it's all the same.
yeah. Look, I mean, the difference. The Republican Party has bad people in it. And they have people who are anti-Semitic in it. But by and large, the majority of the Republican Party doesn't tolerate it.
Yeah.
So when David Duke came along a long time ago, every establishment Republican shunned him. I remember the election when he ran for governor of Louisiana as a Republican candidate. We all supported Governor Edwards. We supported a Democrat who turned out to be a crook. But he was better than the Nazi madman. Or the moment Tucker Carlson had his interview with Fuentes, and I could see the anti-Semitism of Fuentes and Tucker going easy on him, I did a 2-hour podcast ripping both of them apart.
Yeah.
And I was a friend of Tucker Carlson, and I agree with him politically. But the minute he made that turn, I just look at, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, the president did the same thing with all of them. Candace Owens and Fuentes and Tucker and a couple of the other nut jobs. Where the hell where do you see the heads of the Democratic Party doing that? Have you seen Obama do that? Biden wouldn't be capable of doing it, but maybe the auto pen could do it. Or Schumer. Oh, Schumer's Jewish. It's pathetic to watch him.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because Schumer's office was right across the street from Newsmax when I produced there. And the day after October 7th, before Israel even did anything in self-defense, when the mobs were chanting what Hamas did, they went straight to Schumer's office. They essentially, simply because he's Jewish, he has condemned Israel time and again, but it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how much you bend the knee to the mob. If you're Jewish, they're going to hate you no matter what. And we just saw that with Scott Wiener, who's a disgusting creep. I mean, this guy has gone as far as to support gender surgeries for minors. He's also tried to decriminalize pedophilia. And just a couple of days ago, he was being chased by what seemed like this clenched fist Maoist mob, not just hurling at him, but screaming these like unconscionable screams. Well, we like what you're doing to protect the pedos, essentially. They like that. And they said, but you're still somewhat of a Zionist, even though just a couple of months ago, he completely flipped his position to renounce all things Jewish and all things pro-Israel. But it doesn't matter, because he's still too Jewy, even though he apologized for being Jewish. But to your point earlier, it's funny that Tucker, he just left the Republican Party. Nick Fuentes endorsed Kamala Harris. All the people who were on the right, or who used the letter R to spew this hatred and to really spew this type of Marxism, it's almost as if they were on the side of the Marxists all along. They just didn't buy into the pronoun stuff, but that was basically it.
Yeah. What we have done is pretty good job of demonstrating all of that, but we have to demonstrate the superiority of our way of life. The way of life created by the Jews, created by Greek civilization, Roman law, Western Europe, and then this great United States of America, which took it as an amalgam and made it better.
Yeah. And
I mean, I would say 30 years ago, all of my Jewish friends and me would say, oh, that could never happen in America. Anti-Semitic could never happen in America. And New York? Could it happen in New York? Are you out of your mind? New York was a bigger Jewish city than any city in. When I became mayor of New York, I had more Jewish citizens than the mayor of Jerusalem or the mayor of Tel Aviv. And I used to tell them that and kid them. I would say, you should, if you want advice about how to deal with Jews, come to me. I have more Jews in my city than you have. And Mayor Olmert used to get angry, funny, angry. One time he came into my office and I had a very large group of Hasidic Jews there. They were there for some festival we were going to do together or whatever. They're all sitting out in my office, and Mayor Olmert comes in. This is when he was mayor-elect of Jerusalem, and I was mayor-elect of New York. And he said, I can't believe it. You have more black hats than I do.
Well, I know you have one major Jewish supporter, and that's me, and also my mother, of course. But we need you back. We need someone like you back to put New York back to what it was once before, our beautiful city. Now Mamdani has said that he wants to make it, or that New York is apparently a global city. And what he means by that, of course, it's supposed to be the hotbed for the entire third world to take a giant dump on this country. Yeah. And with that, he just posted on social media today, in the name of, what did he say during his inauguration speech? Oh, the warmth of collectivism apparently means now every not homeowner, anyone who rents an apartment in New York, the lowest they can have AC 78
the warmth of rent control when your apartment has rats, holes in it, no heat, and the plaster is falling in your little baby's mouth. That's the warmth of collectivism. And rent control has been rejected by just about every intelligent left-wing person up until now. It's moronic and it's idiotic. And they really are stupid in the terms, he's a zealot, but the other ones are stupid. They don't read history. There was a guy on Newsmax today who was asked, has socialism ever been successful? And the half-wit said, yeah, in America from 1932 until 1954. He meant the New Deal. Somebody has to tell this idiot that the New Deal failed. In 1938, America was deeper in a depression than after Roosevelt than before. And the thing that brought him out of of depression was war. War. The spending on war, the productivity of war, how that energized American industry and really fueled the entire world until almost the 1960s. But do you think he knows this? I don't know. He probably went to Harvard or Yale or someplace else. They don't teach him that.
The other thing is that they're so out of touch. Who's paying for them? Who's paying for their lives so they can comfortably be social?
Soros. Also, this guy, what is his name? Singerman has had his silly pink wife who lives in Singapore as a communist. They're out and out communists. Soros likes to claim, I don't know what Soros is. Soros used to claim anybody who criticized him was anti-Semitic, so I criticized him. And when they came and they said, Soros is going to accuse you of being anti-Semitic, I said, well, hey, I have a challenge for you. I'm going to prove to you, if you want to, let's see if he wants to engage. I'll prove to him that I'm a better Jew than he is.
Well, he also said that when he was working with the Nazis that one time, it was
that's a really nice Jew. You turn your kids in.
The greatest
or
time.
You want all the Jews in Israel to be thrown out. Yeah, that's a really good Jew. Believe me, I'm a better Jew than he is. I think I even respect the religion more than he does.
I'll get you a yami. I'll get you a kippah. I have some spare from my bat mitzvah, but of course it's they love to pretend they're Jewish when they can use it to throw other Jews under a bus. And
he's done more damage. He's done more damage to Israel and the Jewish people than many of the anti-Semites.
Yeah, and I call him a capo, but the capos didn't have a choice because they were beaten by the guards in the camps.
He even said in the 60-minute interview, if people would bother, one of the best times in his life when he was turning his friends in.
Yeah. What a mensch.
When are we going to get to see you? You got to come and visit us and be on our show for a couple of days. Tell them we need you, okay?
I will. Yes.
All right. I have a couple of very intriguing ideas about how we can start a real movement.
She knows she has an open invite. Justine knows.
Positives. I think we have to do that before we go. Even going into these 26 elections, we have to start developing a real movement of people that alert the American people to the danger of anti-Semitism and to the war on Western civilization. I thought the president was actually mentioned it last night. Of course, it didn't get the attention it deserves. But I think it is in the head of the president also. I think he understands that we got to push the positive of this, the value of the civilization that we have, that they have degraded and destroyed. Well, thank you very much, Christine.
Thank you.
We love you. Okay.
I love you too.
We got to get Justine on real soon in studio.
Well, that was very refreshing talking to a brilliant young woman like that, right? Shows you all is not lost. Now I have to tell you something about my religion, the Holy Roman Catholic Church, the church that, along with the Orthodox Church, Greek and otherwise Orthodox churches, they're the only churches that go back as far back as you can go to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Don't get offended now, but I know you will. Whenever I tell the truth, people get offended. Protestant churches emerged 1,500 years after Christ. Martin Luther was opining, never having met Christ, never having met any of the apostles who knew Christ, eliminating a passage in James about how you're not saved by faith alone, and telling us that we weren't saved by faith alone. And the only way he could do that is taking out portions of the Bible. Did he have any number of very good reforms for a then largely corrupt Catholic Church? Absolutely. And did he in the long run help to create the reform movement within the Catholic Church? Yes, he did. But was he giving a legitimate view of the teachings of our Lord and Savior 1,500 years before, and with a major axe to grind, and running off and marrying a nun and all this other stuff? I don't know. Wesley, Henry VIII started a religion. So when we want to talk about religion, we got to go back to ancient Roman Catholicism, ancient Greek Orthodoxy, ancient Coptic Christianity. A lot of these may not mean anything to you, but let's call it the Western and the Eastern Church. At one time, one church, divided pretty quickly, at least jurisdictionally, and then divided for good 900,000 years ago. But divided on who's in charge, not on the doctrines of the church. The doctrines of the Catholic Church and let's say the Greek Orthodox Church, which is, I think, the largest of the Orthodox churches, are almost exactly the same, except for one passage in the Nicene Creed called Filioque, on which they have a sort of agreed to disagree. And there are Eastern Roman Catholic churches that are aligned with the Pope, that agree with the Greek Orthodox interpretation and not the Roman Catholic interpretation, because it's not a matter of faith and morals. It's not something that falls under that very, very exceptionally used power of the Pope, which is often the reason for division. But having said that, let me explain a problem within our own house, within the Roman Catholic Church. And let me get you right to the proximate cause. Today, on July 1st, 2026, a bishop in Switzerland, in a city that I until now had never heard of in Switzerland, a bishop consecrated 4 other bishops. The consecrating bishop was Alfonso di Gallarata. He is a fully authorized, but not fully regular bishop of the Roman Catholic Church, which means as a bishop of the Roman Catholic Church, having once been given the power to ordain priests and to consecrate other bishops, I don't think you could ever take it away from him. But it wasn't taken away from him. Now, this society called the Society of St. Pius X is a group of Roman Catholic priests who, way back in the 1980s, under a cardinal named Lefebvre, decided that they wanted to continue the traditional practices of the Roman Catholic Church that had been altered by the Vatican Council in 1970. Now, we could get into the details of it. I'm not. The main one was the Latin Mass. They wanted to say the Latin Mass. They did not want to use the vernacular Mass, which it turned out, if you examine it closely, is not just a translation of the Latin Mass, which goes back, who knows, 1,200, 1,500, 1,600 years, like the Greek Orthodox service and the Coptic service and others. They wanted to continue to say that and to follow the practices that follow from it. So some bishops easily accepted this, some didn't, but they went ahead and established themselves, the Society of St. Pius X. And I think they picked Pius X because Pius X may have declared that Mass as a Mass for the ages, I think. I'm not sure. But Lefebvre was getting old, and in 1988, he did essentially what was done today. He picked 4 men, and he made them bishops. The Pope was not willing to do that because the Pope didn't want them to continue operating this sort of semi-outside the church. He didn't give him permission, which made the consecration of the bishops valid. They're real bishops. They can make priests and other bishops, but unauthorized, illicit. Exactly what that means, I don't know. I'm not enough of a canon lawyer to explain that. So now, 2 of those bishops are dead. Only 2 are alive. One of them being Alfonso di Galarreta. And they've, in order to preserve themselves, they once again have to do 4 bishops, because should these 2 remaining bishops die with no bishops, it appears as if the Pope is not going to authorize anybody to make bishops as part of SSPV, and they will then die out. So they announced some time ago that they're going to make 4 bishops. They wrote a 28-page letter explaining it and explaining their otherwise complete loyalty to the church and the Pope, and complete loyalty in terms of canon law, in terms of theology, a few differences that we can go into at some other time. The main one is this making of these priests. And today they went ahead and did it with the Pope in a very kind way, I would say. Pope Leo did not take this to the point of making it worse than it is, but very, very, in a very pleading, gentle, loving, pastoral way. He said, please don't do this, because the excommunication, which is called Latei Sententiae or something like that, is automatic. There's nothing I can do about it. And whoever does it or participates in it will be excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church. Their faculties as a bishop or a priest, their sacramental faculty, he cannot take away. As you might know, if you've ever gone to a Catholic ordination, when you're made a priest, you're made a priest forever. Those are the words that are used. The same with the bishop. So here's the service, which was done in Switzerland. They have a big church there, but they used a tent, presumably because they've become so large. I'll tell you how large they are as soon as we see this. Yes. Well, play what you got, and then we'll. Now, when this occurred in 1988, this organization, SSPV, had about 200 priests and was represented in only a few places, and it has grown substantially. So as best we can tell today, they have 800 chapels or mass centers. They have 130 schools. They have about a dozen seminaries, including in the United States, and they are represented in some ways in 70 countries. The biggest being in France, the United States, Switzerland, Argentina, and Germany. It also is a phenomenon of present religious attractiveness, that a lot of the younger generation are returning to church, and they are opting in fairly large numbers for the more traditional churches. This is inuring to the benefit of the Orthodox Church, which is growing, and it's inuring to the benefit of the Catholic Church. But the more traditional, the better. So this church is growing as I speak, with young people who want a church to stand for something. Now, the whole idea of the Vatican Council was to take that church, sort of that came out of the Council of Trent centuries ago, and modernize it, make it more appealing to the modern world. These young people now, they kind of skipped a generation or two, but they're rebelling against the modern world, and they're looking for something more traditional. There was a CD done of of chants. It went right to the top. It was like one of the best CDs of the year about 7 or 8 years ago. People use Gregorian chant to go to sleep and to relax. And many, many people prefer it as the backdrop to their religious service than trying to imitate current contemporary music, which happens in a lot of Catholic churches with a guitar and that sort of thing. So, so what has happened is this little group, which is the largest of the Latin Mass groups, has, as I said, 800 chapels, 130 schools, 700 to 800 priests. I'm sorry, they have 400. Oh, I'm sorry, they have, yes, 7,000 to 8,000 priests. And they are growing. So right here, I'm in the middle of two groups that do the Latin Mass. One is north of me, about 50 miles, SSPV, X. South of me is the Society of St. Peter. The Society of St. Peter is fully aligned with Rome. They have regular Catholic bishops ordain their priests. They don't have any bishops, and they have special relationships with the bishops in dioceses, like the bishop here in New Hampshire, to say Latin Mass, and it's fully authorized by Rome. But that group is half the size of the Society of Pius, the fifth. Now, you say, well, that's really big. They're really big. Now I want you to consider how big the Catholic Church is to get an idea of, is this an overreaction? There are 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. There are 400,000 priests. We're talking about 7 or 8,000. The SSPX represents less than 1% of 1% of the Catholic Church. So, yes, it's a very intriguing movement. Yes, young people are attracted to it. I myself am. I'm not saying the SSPX, but I really enjoyed the Society of St. Peter Mass that I went to, or the Latin Masses that are said in regular parishes. I mean, I grew up with the Latin Mass. I don't know if it's, I think it's much more beautiful. But is that me because I grew up with it, or is it? Or in any event, I'm certainly willing to see a church that allows both on an equal basis or whatever basis you want. So Rome treats this as a schismatic act. The bishops who participated in it are excommunicated. The 2 consecrating bishops and 4 new bishops incurred automatic excommunication under canon law for consecrating bishops without a papal mandate or approval. The SSPX is not automatically excommunicated. Excommunication applies only to individuals, not to a whole society. Practically, Rome is treating the act as schismatic. The Vatican had already warned that consecrations would be schismatic act, and says the group remains unrecognized by the Holy See. This is a direct break with papal authority in appointing bishops. And here's the part that, of course, might be very, very hard if you haven't studied Roman Catholicism or even Greek Orthodoxy or the more complex religious traditions. The new bishops are validly consecrated, but illicit and outside of regular communion with Rome. So what does that mean? That means if these bishops decide to ordain a priest, they ordain a priest. If they give out the sacraments like any priest, the sacraments are valid. Whether it is permissible for you as a Roman Catholic to participate, the current situation is yes, if you're doing it because, this distinction, very interesting. If you're doing it because you very much find it efficacious to participate in the Latin service, if that helps you spiritually. But if you're doing it as an act of defiance to Rome, then you're committing a sin. That could change. That could change. Right now, as best we can tell, they have about 600,000 people who attend Mass every Sunday, all around the world, including in most states in the United States. And depending on the degree of their affiliation with SSPX, they can run afoul of being legitimate Catholics, but they would have to be, in essence, doing it as an act of defiance. If they're doing it because they just find it more beautiful, that's perfectly, it's not perfectly okay. It's okay. What the church would prefer to have you do is to go to one of these organizations like the Society of St. Peter, which is fully aligned with Rome and whose priests are all ordained by and bishops created by fully recognized bishops of the Roman Catholic Church. So that's interesting. We'll see what comes of it. It is part of the very, very complex religious movement that's going on all around the world, and the desire for stability and strength and orthodoxy in our lives, some direction for it, some rule for it. And all of that is very, very healthy. But like anything else, it can get out of control. And I admire these people, these SSPX people, for their faith and their beliefs. I just wish they had, well, maybe I don't know enough about it. I don't see how you can defy the Pope and expect the Pope not to react, even though he did it in a very, very kind and beautiful way. And I hope Pope Leo, who seems to me to be an exceptionally holy man and smart man, I hope he finds a way around this for them, because they seem like very good people. So I know this takes you a little off track and it may not be interesting to everyone, but it is part of what we're all going through as a society in this reaction to atheistic communism and to the attack being made on our civilization, including our religions, by extremist Muslims. Well, pray for,
of course.
yes.
Sticker Mule Pro.
Sticker Mule is exactly the thing you got to do right now, because like T2T.org, where you should send in your $11 during this season of great patriotism, you should sign up for Sticker Mule. And you can buy beautiful things like this, or you can sell them, and they'll handle everything for you. They'll take care of the advertising. They'll take care of getting it to your customers. They'll take care of building up your base of customers. You can make a lot of money. You can make a little bit of money. And what you can do is have the feeling that you're spreading patriotism, which we need so badly right now. Patriotism and religion. We got to spread God. We got to spread the greatness of America. Stickamule.com/pro, promo code Rudy. And you can get things and you can sell things and do as much as you want. Try it. Pray for the people of Israel, for the people of Ukraine. Pray for the people of Iran. Pray for the president. We thank you. We pray to you, God, for allowing us to be Americans during its 250th birthday. And we thank you for preserving our president and guiding him. We'll see you tomorrow night and go over to see Dr. Maria now on Wendell TV. Excellent show. God bless America. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.